to Bay, the show dedicated to Toastmasters from San Francisco to Monterey. For any of you who are unfamiliar with Toastmasters, let me tell you a little bit about them. Toastmasters International is a nonprofit educational organization that's focused on teaching public speaking and leadership skills by providing supportive environments through local clubs, education materials, and opportunities to enhance your skills. On tonight's show, Bay to Bay is featuring 3 very experienced Toastmasters who are sharing with us a glimpse into their creative spirits and equally creative minds. They are giving us speeches from tall tales to manual speeches. What are tall tales, you ask? Tall tales are speeches that tell an improbable story by enhancing and sometimes providing some very unusual events for the entertainment of the audience. To introduce us to a tall tale through his very own creative spirit and fascinating mind, I would like to introduce you to the one-of-a-kind man from Stanford LEB Toastmasters. Join us now as we take a very unique trip with the amazing Christopher Lipp.
Mushrooms can kill you. First your liver shuts down, and then your internal organs go black. Once they go black, they never go back. But there are worse things in the world than mushrooms, as I discovered on the 10th year of my life on family vacation. Now, many of you probably had normal family vacations where you went skiing or you went to the beach. But in my family, we went mushroom hunting. Now, I know what you're thinking, but it's not like Indiana Jones. It's not exciting with things flying at you. Basically, you comb the forest floor looking for edible mold, which you take home and stir fry. And if you pull something that's poisonous, you died. And if it were edible, it still tasted poisonous, and you wish you had died. And as a child, to tolerate the taste, what I would do was imagine that these mushrooms were a magical mold, which would give me superpowers. They never did, but I imagined they would. Well, on that 10th year of my life, I was taken to a new forest with my family. And as we arrived, I stepped out of our van, a confinement of car sickness. And in front of me lay this new forest, its shadows casting down upon me. And in the distance, I could hear the caw of a crow. An ominous sign, but I was ready for my quest. And within the first few minutes, I made my first discovery. A mushroom! And not just any mushroom, a big, massive, pink, polka-dotted mushroom. Now, if ever there was a magical mushroom, this would be it. But there is a rule in mushroom hunting to determine which are edible and which are not. And the rule is much like my love life, in that the prettier they are, generally the more toxic they will be. So I passed on and kept searching. As the sun slowly slid across the sky, I lost sight of my father until I came upon a fairy ring. A fairy ring! A ring of mushrooms where supposedly fairies come together and dance and celebrate. And I sat there for a moment and I imagined fairies dancing from toadstool to toadstool. Of course, there were no fairies. And as these mushrooms looked rather plain, I reached down to pick one. And the pop seemed to resound through the forest. And all of a sudden, these colorful clusters rose from the ground. All these gold and green hues glistening off the grass. Fairies! Real fairies! Well, Disney would have you believe that these beautiful fairies are so sweet and so nice. But just like mushrooms, the prettier they are, they swarmed me, and they started to scratch my arms, and they scratched my legs, and I started to run and scream and cry, "Daddy, Daddy!" And they kept going me until these big arms shook me, and I was, what is going on? Oh, Daddy, mushrooms, fairies. He took my hand, and we walked back to the fairy ring. But there were no fairies. And so he reached to begin getting the mushrooms. Oh, but nothing happened. And that night we went home. Ladies and gentlemen, there are more dangerous things in the world than mushrooms. People will have you believe that the imagination is a source of creativity and joy. But the imagination can be a very dangerous thing indeed. I have no doubt that I imagined those fairies on that fateful day, and yet I still have their scars on my arms. That night my father cooked us a stir-fry dinner of mushrooms. Now, had they been inedible, we would have died. We didn't. Only the taste was toxic. But I will tell you, I didn't imagine that it was a magical mold. That evening, I sat and let the real disgusting flavor drizzle over my tongue. And I will tell you this, reality never tasted so sweet. Madame Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Mushrooms are not the only thing that comes out of a creative mind. I would like to introduce you to another Tall Tales speaker tonight, a speaker from Foster City Toastmasters, here to entertain us with his speech, Argo. But wait, there's more, Mr. Robert Tang.
For Best Picture of the Year, and the Oscar goes to Argo, a movie based on a true story. For those who have not seen the movie or are familiar with the story which the movie is based on, the movie depicts the very early stage of that 1979 Iran hostage crisis. And the movie focuses on those 6 lucky Americans who were able to escape the US Embassy in Iran just before those Iranian revolutionaries took over the entire embassy and created this crisis. With the help of the US CIA agent and a Canadian ambassador, those 6 Americans were able to escape out of the country with papers and Canadian passports, pretending that these 6 Americans were actually Canadian filmmakers in Iran looking for a location to film this new Hollywood science fiction movie called Argo. But wait, there's more. One more lucky American who escaped with those 6 on that fateful day. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there were actually 7 Americans that escaped. That 7th American was me. I was a Fulbright scholar in Iran during the fall of 1979, doing research on the Persian Empire. Although I didn't have diplomatic status, I was always welcome at the US Embassy in Tehran whenever I needed help. And I remember that one fateful day, that November the 4th, 1979, where looking out at the embassy window, I noticed that these protesters were being a little bit more aggressive. They were scaling the embassy walls. Someone cut the chain to the front gate. They're coming in. My danger alarm went off while these US diplomats were busily shredding classified documents. I was looking for the back entrance. Exit. Found it on my way out. Saw 6 other Americans that had the same idea. We went and got out through the back door. Luckily, no protesters. Silence. Just rows of buildings, foreign embassies that were behind us. The 7 of us all ran to the first embassy, the British embassy, rang the doorbell, rattled the front gate, looked up, said, "Help! Let us in! Let us in! We're not Iranian protesters. We're not revolutionaries. We're not these radicals. We're not the students." Well, except me. I'm a student, but I'm a good student. I'm an American student. We're Americans. The gate remained locked. Went to the next embassy did the same thing, rang the doorbell, shook on the gate, looked up, waved, saw the eyes. Still, no answer. Went to the next gate, did the same thing, went to the next gate, no one let us in. Went to the Chinese embassy, rang the doorbell, right out front gate, looked at the faces up there, looking down at us, Chinese faces. I stepped back, I waved, spoke in Chinese that I'm Chinese, let me in. 我係中國人，開門. A minute later, 2 guards came out. They looked at us. One opened the door to the front gate, pulled me in, while the other guard shooed the 6 Americans outside. All I could do was wave goodbye. It looked like these 6 Americans were going to the next embassy, the Canadian embassy, I think. Once inside the Chinese embassy, I was greeted by the Chinese ambassador, offered tea. I sat down, explained what just happened. The Chinese ambassador said to me, "No worry, no worry. We will help you escape the country. We will give you Chinese passport. We will give you papers saying that you are Chinese businessmen in Iran looking for locations for a new Chinese restaurant called China Express. Yes, we will help you." Next day, with a Chinese passport, with papers saying that I'm a Chinese businessman, restaurateur on location looking for China Express locations, I was able to board a plane in Tehran airport and fly out. Later, the Chinese restaurant became a chain. Successful, was renamed Panda Express. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the rest of the story. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. From mushrooms to CIA operations, you never know what you'll hear in a Toastmasters meeting. I'd like to present to you a very special glimpse into one of our local Toastmasters Club. Next Step Toastmasters is going to allow us to look into their world.
At Next Step, we believe that anyone joining our club would like to take themselves to their own personal growth and to a higher level than what they're at.
This is a person that's seeking to go higher in their advancement of speaking. Basically what they're looking for is a little bit more of a tougher standard.
Evaluation is what helps you get to a higher level of speaking and leadership. When the speaker comes in and says, "I want to be good enough to win international contests," we give them the honest, direct feedback on what we believe will take him to that level.
Before the speech started, I asked Wani, "So now, what do you want out of this? Why are you repeating this, and what do you think are your strengths and weaknesses?" So he gave me his impressions, and I promised, okay, I'll do my best. And here's what I observed in his speech. So that the flip side to that would have been the structure, where it lacked a clear beginning, a body, and the end. I heard a lot about you, I learned a lot about you today, but I thought that it could have a really clear, concise.
What I really liked about your speech was the stories came from your heart. The story about your sister, the story about your Toastmasters journey, as I would have expected from a competent speaker like yourself. But the reason why you're here is to help you get to the next level. So I'm going to share with you a few things that I hope you can use in your next speeches. The very first line, very first opening.
I thought that you had some really good statistics. What I was missing a little bit is the personal connection and some stories. So I thought personalizing that a little bit more might have drawn us all in a little bit. You spent a lot of time identifying the problem, but I was missing a little bit more on the solution.
Have you watched American Idol? Well, I'm going to play the part of Simon, so buckle your seatbelts.
You have to be able to accept the input, and it's genuine, it's sincere, it's how we feel when we hear your speech, And sometimes our perception of ourselves is not exactly how the audience views us. So the main ingredient is being willing to accept the input to become better.
So take those and tie it into this message that you want to deliver to us.
Try that next time, and I think the more you're able to do that, it can be a little painful at times, but it'll be worth it to the next level. But otherwise, I thought you're at the right place to help get to that next level. Madam Toastmaster.
Welcome back. Our next speech is from the manual entitled Competent Communicator for How to Say It. The objectives of the speech are easy. Select the right words and sentence structure and eliminate jargon. To present her speech entitled Teach and Learn, may I present to you Maren Otieno. Maren?
Thank you, Ms. Toastmaster, and welcome guests, fellow Toastmasters. I had been on the phone playing phone tag with the government office for quite some time, and I had finally reached a live body. This phone call was very important. My children didn't agree with me. They were so disruptive, I could hardly hear the caller. Mommy, Mommy, can you read me a story? What's for dinner? I want to color, and I want to color now. Well, as I completed my phone call, I got frustrated, and then I got angry. But as I set down the phone, I have good parenting skills. So I was not going to yell. I was not going to punish them. I was going to turn this into a teachable moment. I gathered my 3 children together, got down at eye level, and I told them, you know what? Good people do not interrupt people's phone calls. Phone calls are very important. In fact, if you're a good person, you wait until the phone call is hung up and then you talk to the individual. The only time you want to ever interrupt a phone call is if there's an emergency. Do you understand? They looked at me kind of confused. They nodded their heads. And then my son, who was the oldest at the time, 7 years old, he asked me, but Mom, what's an emergency? So I thought for a minute and I said, an emergency is a fire. It's when someone is hurt or bleeding. It's when there's a burglar in the house. Those are all good examples of emergencies. And if those things happen, then you can interrupt the phone call. So we spent the next half hour defining emergencies. Well, what happens if he takes my toy? That's not an emergency. What if I want to change the TV channel? Not an emergency. Well, what if I fall down the stairs? Well, did you get hurt? Are you bleeding? Then it's not an emergency. What if I break a glass? Well, if you keep people away from the glass, then it's really not an emergency. You just have to keep your siblings away from the glass. What if I want to eat cake? No, that's not an emergency. What if I step on the glass? Well, then you're bleeding. And so, yes, that's an emergency. So we had really defined emergencies, or so I thought. The very next day, I'm on a phone call. It's not an important phone call. I'm just talking to my sister. And my 3 kids come rushing in, and they're jumping up and down, and I look at them, and I think, aha, another teachable moment. So I cover the mouthpiece, and I say, emergency? They look a little confused. No. I said, wait. So I leisurely finished my phone call, and then even after my sister hung up, I really needed to teach them patience. So I stayed on the phone a minute or 2 longer, just listening to the air and going, uh-huh, uh-huh. As soon as I put down the phone, they all ran in, and they're really excited, and they're, Mom, Mom, the toilet upstairs is broken. So I start running upstairs. I get about halfway before I feel the squish of the carpet. The door to the bathroom is closed. I open the bathroom door, and a full 4 inches of water rushes over my feet and down the hall. I've got a waterfall going down my wall now. So I reach under the toilet, turn off the water, and I run downstairs to get towels. That's when I noticed that we had a waterfall. It was coming through the kitchen ceiling light and down onto the floor. In fact, The ceiling was so full of water that it was bowed a good 6 inches. I was sure that my toilet was going to be in my kitchen soon. So I put chairs in front of the door to the kitchen. I made my kids stay in the living room, ran outside, turned off all the electricity, and for a very long time, I sat with buckets and towels, and I'm sopping up the water and wringing out my towels and looking at the ceiling, wondering what to do. And as I'm doing that, I'm getting angrier and angrier. And this time, I couldn't stop. I looked at the kids and I said, "Why didn't you interrupt me? This obviously was an emergency." Well, my son looks at me and he shook his head. And he says, "There was no fire. Nobody was hurt or bleeding. There was no burglar in the house. And I didn't step on any glass." Well, I learned 3 things that day. The first is that you have to look at the bright side. Although I had water everywhere, it was clean water from the toilet tank, not gray water from the toilet bowl. Nobody had been shocked or electrocuted. And it was summer, so it was hot, and the water would dry up a little bit faster. That's number 1. The second thing is people take things very literally. So no matter if you're teaching your children or if you're writing a contract, you have to cover every single possible scenario. And the third thing is that if you're not willing to be interrupted, you must be willing to suffer the consequences. If I ever forget those 3 things, all I have to do is look up at my kitchen ceiling. It's been 10 years, but there's still a crack where the water made the ceiling sag. Miss Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Maren. Tell us, you've been a Toastmaster for a couple of years. How long have you been a Toastmaster?
17, long time.
17. I bet in that time you have been a member of multiple clubs.
Just 2, actually.
Really?
TGI Management Toastmasters and Agile Articulators.
Well,
but I joined Agile Articulators when it was HP Club, so I've joined it twice, unknowingly.
You just have been bitten by the Toastmasters bug.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your speech. Hopefully now we can all learn to have a little bit of patience and a little bit of humor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Every great Toastmaster knows that they have things they do wonderful and things they can work on. To help us learn what Maren does wonderfully and the things she could work on, I would like to introduce an evaluator from G-Toast Toastmasters, Adriana Baca. Adriana.
Hi, Maren. Congratulations on a speech well done. I have to admit, being in the audience, watching you, I did get a little bit lost and in your story, and I loved how you really used the short space that you have to work with to kind of create your imaginary kids. I felt like your kids were in the room with us, and I loved how you actually got down and kind of squatted at eye level. I thought that was great. You had a lot of animation with your story, and I just wanted to hear more of that. I loved how you used some advanced speaking tools like vocal variety and gestures. I know your speech is how to say it and I thought you did that very well. I think going forward, you're going to learn as you progress through your manual that you're going to have to use those tools a little bit more. So I think if you just practice that a little bit more, it's just going to take it that much further with your audience. Because I really did feel that connection that you made as sitting in the audience listening to your story. I got totally wrapped up. I felt like I was there in the house with you. I could feel the emotion that you used. I thought of your children, and I can just visualize everything that you were using. You used very good descriptive words, and I think I saw the waterfall and I could feel your pain, and the whole time I was thinking, where are the kids at? What are they thinking, you know, as she's running around trying to clean all this up? And I loved how you tied the story at the end and you brought it full circle for us, where you told us in the beginning how you were trying to teach them a lesson, and in the end, you were the one who learned the lessons that you learned from your children. I thought that was very well done, and I loved how you articulated that to the audience and how you captivated us and you kept us with you the whole time. I just think that as you progress and you practice more using the stage, and if you have more space, you can make it bigger. But other than that, I think you're doing very well. You're on the right track, and I congratulate you for a speech well done tonight. Thank you for allowing us into your house, and I'm glad that the waterfall didn't wash you guys all away. So congratulations. Thank you. Toastmaster.
That is our show. For those of you who loved hearing about magic mushrooms, CIA operations, and unexpected waterfalls, we have many more stories to share with you in District 4, so please check out our website at www.d4tm.org and find a local club near you so you can hear some more amazing stories. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Oh, well done.
That was so much fun.